All right, it is that time. Let's get started. Thank you for the host, Crafty. I really appreciate that, and it is super good to see you in here. So welcome to anyone who's watching, to Crafty and to whoever else is here with us. This is my weekly, relatively new, but weekly tarot stream. This week, I think, unless there's someone in the chat right now that just super wants a reading to start out with, I think this week I'd like to start off with some show and tell, because I've been wanting to talk about the court cards in the Numinous Tarot deck for a while now, in part because they've really kind of shifted my view on how I interact with and how I talk about court cards. So I know that I had a brand new viewer in my travelogue stream this week, I believe Steve from Utah. And in theory, this person may show up for this stream, and if they do, I will be doing a reading for them, but if not, we will still have a good time. So, yeah, Crafty, so in theory, I get the court cards. I'm going through and pulling out said cards. They're about approaches, right? And on an abstract level. So I was taught that the court cards are, there are four court cards for each of the four suits. Each of the four suits corresponds to one of the classical Western elements: air, earth, fire, water, snow, heart. And likewise, each of the positions in the court corresponds to an element. So, page being earth, knight being air, queen being water, and king being fire. So each particular court card, like the Knight of Cups, is the intersection of those two elements. So the Knight of Cups is, in theory, talks about the airy part of water, or the application of our brains to our hearts, how those two things interact. And so I get that on an abstract level, and when I'm reading for myself, that's kind of okay. It's kind of all right. It's very hard to explain in a way that I feel makes good and, more than that, useful sense to the people I'm reading for, who are usually not tarot experts, and they shouldn't have to be, right? You should not have to be a tarot expert to understand your tarot reading, or the tarot reading that someone else is giving you. The person doing the reading should be able to explain, right? So I always particularly struggled with explaining this to whoever I was reading for. And add to the fact that in the traditional tarot court system, it's very hierarchical and, like so many other things, extremely gendered and binary in that. Like it kind of goes boy girl, or from king down, boy girl, so to speak. If you count the page as the traditional page as a feminine presence, which they kind of do, and it's weird, and I don't know, but that's a weird, also for me, a weird equating of childish with feminine. And so the women are always of a lower status than their kind of paired dudes. Ah, Steve, yay, you made it. You made it. So Steve is the person that I know I'm going to be reading for tonight. Let's see, did I find all of these? No, I didn't. Steve, if you don't mind, like an hour to kill. Okay, all right. Well, I just finished pulling the court cards out of one of my decks for a little bit of show and tell. But since you are here and I want to be sure and get your reading in. And I don't want to make you late for anything or keep you from anything as well. How about we go ahead and do your reading, and I've got my cards pulled out for show and tell after that. So, Steve, first thing, be thinking of the question or issue that you'd like to look at tonight in your reading. Hopefully this is not going to get scary, but be thinking of what you want to look at and let me know in chat. And also let me know which deck you want me to use. So I've got this one, which is the Crowley Thoth deck. It's kind of abstract and psychedelic. Oh, sorry. This is the Thoth deck, as in the Egyptian god. So it's Aleister Crowley's tarot deck. It's some pretty wild imagery. I can use that one. Or I can use the wooden tarot deck, which is kind of cute and creepy and minimalistic. So the choice is yours, Steve. Automod is overly zealous. Yes, Thoth is great. Mr. Ibis is my man. I don't know why it thought that had profanity in it, Steve. It clearly did not. I don't know. It's weird. Anyway, so let me know which of those two decks you'd like and what question you'd like to look at, and we can get started. And Crafty, how are you doing tonight? Hope things are going well for you. Don't have a good question. So is there a part of, Steve, is there a part of an area of your life you'd like some clarity on, or Oh, yes. Long weekends are great, Crafty. So, an area of your life you'd like clarity in, or an issue that's kind of been cropping up, or I do have a couple of, excuse me, general spread options. We can kind of take a look at what's kind of coming up for you in general, what's kind of going to be the next thing coming to you, and how you can support that, or take a look, just kind of take a general look at where your resources are and how you can support yourself right now. Forming a good tarot question is hard. Sometimes it requires us to sit with ourselves in a way that a lot of us don't necessarily do on a regular basis. So it can be tough. And if you don't worry about things in general, that's great. I do not have that talent. Would you like for me to kind of talk about the other stuff I had planned tonight and let you think about what you'd like for me to do your reading about? Would that work better? I'm sorry, y'all. I went and did some gardening and yard work today, and I think the pollen is having a party in my throat. So, pardon me. But no, what would be fun, Steve? Tell me. Okay, Steve. So, if you'd like, it sounds like you might like some time to get a grasp on what you might want. So I think I'm gonna do a little bit of, I'm sorry, I have those days too. But I'm gonna do a little bit of that'll happen, Steve. Like I said, if a reading, just kind of check in on where is your energy and where are your resources, how can you support yourself, would help. We can just do that, or I can go ahead and, yes. All right. We will look at where your energy and resources are. So, and unless you wanted the other deck, I'm gonna go ahead with the Thoth deck since you said Thoth is your dude. I'm gonna shuffle the cards. So, just to give credit where credit's due, this spread, like a lot of the ones that I really like and use pretty frequently, comes from the folks at the Little Red Tarot website. All right, so Steve and fellow viewers, I'm going to talk about the positions of the spread as I lay the cards down, and then we'll talk through everything in more detail, so don't worry if you don't catch everything the first time, okay? So this It's going to be kind of where you are right now. The climate or kind of the weather, your internal weather, the weather of your energy. Crafty Kaiju, it doesn't have a snappy name, but it's just it's a resources and sustainability spread. Like, how can we be, doesn't have a snappy name, but it's about assessing your resources and how you can support yourself. So this one is going to be the reminder or advice that is most relevant or helpful for you right now. This one shows you a resource that you can tap into, something that you may or may not have thought about. And then this one is going to be talking about something tangible you can do, a next step, a physical practice. Okay? So we will flip it over and see what we've got. Okay, and I'll be sure to show you the cards in detail as we go through them. I know that this isn't the most, this isn't the clearest shot right here, but at least you can get a feeling for how they're arranged and what the spread feels like. So starting up here in the, here's where your energy is, here's what the climate, what the weather's like for you. This is the Two of Cups, and if you're new to tarot, cups are always about cups are usually talking about our hearts, about our emotions, about the deep places in ourselves, okay? And the Two of Cups is kind of the quintessential new relationship card, but it doesn't always mean a new romantic relationship. It's about that kind of energy when your heart is leaping up towards something or someone. So in this case, this might be saying, you know, if there's a new project in your life that you are just super into, it lights you up, it gets you going, it might be about that. If there's a new crush in your life, it could be about that. But the way it's about that kind of new relationship energy, whether it's for a person or a project or an idea. So, kind of starting point, here's where we are, almost infatuation with whatever's going on. And then your reminder. Yes, exactly, Crafty. That cup is overflowing. Overflowing, it's a very excited cup. So your reminder or advice. This is the Nine of Swords. And swords tend to be about our brains, about our intellect, our thought level. And the Nine of Swords is often about the way that our brains can be jerks to us, okay? The Nine of Swords is often about anxiety, about what ifs, about all the things that our brains may try to convince us are real dangers, but that don't necessarily have any bearing in the physical world. So here, I did not, I mean, I shuffled it, but I did not stack it. So to me, this is a reminder that in the midst of this excitement, of this rush of love and enthusiasm, this is a reminder that the things we struggle with don't go away just because we're excited, right? And even when we're full of enthusiasm, we have to be mindful of the things that our brains may be telling us, the things that our brains may be doing to us that are either not helpful, not borne out by reality, or both. Okay? Because it can be easy to, in the heat of the moment, in the enthusiasm of something new, it can be easy to push aside our fears, our worries. And that's not always helpful. When we stop engaging with them, sometimes that gives them more power. If we push them aside, push them away, and just like, no, I'm done. I've got this shiny new thing over here, and I'm not going to listen to you anymore. Sometimes that means they just come back louder and angrier. So even in the midst of whatever has you really lit up, remember to listen to yourself. Remember to be aware of what your brain's doing to you and check in with that. Is that okay? Is that real? How does this accord with external reality? So, both not believing the narratives uncritically and not burying them. Exactly. Not burying the dark. So, a resource that you can draw on. This is your one inverted card, your one upside down card. And it's the Ace of Discs. Now, discs, if you're not familiar, talk about everything material. Talk about our bodies, our health, our physical space and resources, our money. And usually, if the Ace of Discs is upright, that talks about kind of having a wealth of these kinds of resources to draw from. Since it's inverted for you, to me this says that something that's going to be helpful for you right now is remembering to take a realistic look at what you have to work with. Remembering that your resources are limited. They're not infinite. You may be super excited about something right now and want to do all the things and give everything to it. But then you may not have enough resources for something else that really needs them. So to me, this reversed Ace of Discs asks you to be careful with your resources. Asks you to take a clear, hard look at what you have to work with, what you have to give, and proceed accordingly. Not proceed out of what you want to be able to give, but what you actually have. Okay. And then the last card, the agenda item, the action item. This is your one Major Arcana card. And for those who are not super familiar with tarot, the Major Arcana cards are about things that are bigger than we are. Things that are archetypal, things that bigger forces, bigger stories than we are. And this is the Priestess, or the High Priestess. And she is about all those places in us, all the really deep places, the things we may not look at often, places we may not go to often, all of that. So to me, this says that the most helpful thing for you to be doing right now is really getting in touch with what's going on internally. What inside you is driving this enthusiasm? What inside you is driving? No, I did not say that, Steve. I did not say start a cult. I said get in touch with your own internal workings. I'm sorry. I'm not saying you can't. Just this is not what's indicated. All right. Instead, doing some deliberate work, journaling or processing, however you do it, to delve into what's going on with you around this sense of enthusiasm and joy and love. What's producing that? Where is that rooted in you? And what does it tell you about yourself? So this is very personal work, all right, and not externally focused charismatic work. Those would be very different cards. But so that's what I'm seeing for you here as far as your energy and your resources. A lot of enthusiasm. That's seems likely to kind of take more from you than you have to give if you're not careful with it, and get very clear with yourself about what's happening to you and for you around that. Do you have any clarifying questions, Steve, before I take this up? And thank you very much for letting me read for you. I really appreciate it. It's always fun to get to read for a new person. So no cult, Steve. No cult. Not, at least not based on this. No cult. Thank you, Crafty. Thank you. Whatever your project is, you should be very realistic about what your resources are, Steve, and only work within your means. Work within your means and get very clear with yourself internally about why you're doing what you're doing. Okay? All right. No, that is not what I'm seeing here at all. I'm sorry. Taxes are a necessary pain in the ass, but they are necessary. I like them too. That's why I use them, even though I have some problems with them. Like philosophically, not with reading or understanding, but you know, Crowley was Crowley, and yeah. Automod very much has it for you. Yes, Steve. I will let that through because you are self-referring. Yes, and yes, Crafty, that's an excellent point. The resources talked about in the Ace of Discs are not necessarily money. also about your time, about your energy, about if you share house or food or other kind of physical stuff with people, then that's something to be aware of too. Those are resources as well. Good. Thank you, Steve. I am very glad of that. If it's okay, I kind of feel like I've done what I could do with this. So I'm gonna move these off and do some talking about the other thing I wanted to talk about tonight, but I will leave these out just in case you come up with, you realize that, oh, I really wish I'd asked about that, and want to ask about it at the end. So I'm gonna take these up. And yes, Crafty. That is a huge function of tarot for me, is helping guide us, at least, if not to truly universal truths, then at least to our understanding of truths, and preferably a lot of what's going on inside me. How do I function, and why am I functioning this way? So, other thing we're looking at tonight, like I said, starting out, the court cards have always been a little difficult for me to work with, to articulate, and to help other folks understand. So, hi Cacophony, hey, welcome. So I thought I wanted to both show off and do some talking around the court cards. Yeah, sure, Steve. Thank you for letting me read for you, and enjoy your burger. Have a good evening. So, the Numinous Tarot, in a lot of ways, breaks down the binaries. Noel Arthur Hempel, the author of the tarot deck, is non-binary, and was very careful in their writing in the book that goes along with this to refer to all the people in all the cards, no matter what their presentation was like, with they them pronouns. And so instead of keeping the usual page, knight, king, queen, or even princess, prince, king, queen, or son, daughter, father, mother, sort of gendered and binary court card structure, they completely redid it in a way that I think is super useful. So pages are now dreamers, knights are explorers, queens are creators, and kings are mystics. And even more than that, in the book, and Cacophony knows what I'm talking about here, they've got a Numinous Tarot deck too. Noel talks about the different kinds of questions that each role in the court asks. And this in particular has been so helpful for me when I'm reading for other people. Being able to say, okay, because yeah, court cards are about an approach for me most of the time. Sometimes they're about a person, but most of the time, like, this is telling you that this approach would be helpful or is called for or is not called for, whatever. But this approach to things, these qualities. And it's been super helpful for me to be able to look at a reading with the querent, with whoever I'm reading for, and say, well, this is telling me that these kinds of questions might help you. You may want to be asking yourself these things. So, with the dreamers, here's the Dreamer of Candles. Sorry, it's a little blurry. So in any other deck, Page of Wands. The dreamers ask what questions? So here, which light do I want? What light do I want? What do I want to do with it? It's about choosing, about identifying desires or direction. And that fits in well with my understanding, my previous understanding of pages as curious or playful. So they're not bogged down in process or who do I want on this journey with me, or why am I doing this? What? Identifying what do I want? So, yeah. Which of these lights? What shiny thing? What shiny project do I want? What do I want to change or transform or get done? Then Page of Vials, or Dreamer of Vials. So similar questions, but on the heart level, like what do I want? What does my heart want? What would be fulfilling or nurturing for me right now? What lights me up inside? What gets me going? Where's my heart pulling me? No moral judgments, just identify. So the Dreamer of Bells, likewise. What song am I hearing? What ideas am I having? What ideas are drawing me, are involving me? What thoughts are coming back and back to me lately? What's sticking with me? And then Dreamer of Tomes. What does my body want? What do I need to do in my physical space? What, maybe what's going on with, or what do I need around money or my health or that sort of thing. So these what questions, these questions of identification, really being curious and just getting at that basic, here's what I want level, the level that you have to engage with things on before you can even talk about how do I do a thing, what do I want to do. So those are dreamers, and I love that. I also love that there's not nearly as much of a kind of hierarchical value placed on the court cards here. It's because it's just as important to, if not more so, in some ways more foundational, to identify what you want as well as why You want it, right? And yeah, Crafty, especially for especially for our day and time, fully understanding what a page does. Page is not as useful a role to understand as a dreamer. Thinking about possibilities, thinking about goals, thinking about destinations. Exactly. So instead of knights, we have explorers. And if you noticed in the dreamer cards, all of them were looking at or engaged with the symbol of their suit, reading a book or catching holding a light in their hand or looking at the critter in the vial. All of the explorers have a mount that represents their suit, because they are asking the how questions. We know where we're going. How do we get there? What are the logistics? What's the path going to look like? What do we need to do to get there? So, the Explorer of Candles here has this wonderful little salamander mount, and I love it a lot, and had never considered having a salamander as a mount, but I kind of want one now. And then the Explorer of Vials, who is clearly very this makes me think a lot of you, Kofi, actually, because sea creature, mermaid, not quite, no tentacles, but that works. So mermaid on a jellyfish. Her vehicle is a jellyfish, and I love it. These folks in particular also kind of put me in mind of the conceit, but the tradition in Hindu iconography of depicting gods, deities, with their vehicle, their animal mount, that always says something about the god or the deity represented. So Durga rides a lion. Ganesha has a mouse as his mount, etc. But yeah, so Explorer of Vials on a jellyfish. How do we get what the heart wants? Yeah, Crafty, a mouse. Because, okay, so mythological detour. Okay, all right, yes, we can put a pin in it and we'll come back to it later. Yes, so the how questions of how do we get to emotional fulfillment? How do we reach the place we want to be emotionally? Often, how do we work on ourselves to get there? Then the Explorer of Bells. This is the only one who doesn't have a mount, and instead they have wings. And I love that. Because, well, could have just as easily been someone sitting on a bird. But I love the idea that our own thoughts carry us, our own inspiration carries us. So this explorer asks questions like, how do I make this idea a reality? What's involved in that? How do I prove this or get the resources or make this theoretical idea practical? And starts to chart out those sorts of things. And then the Explorer of Tomes, which is really one of my favorite scenes in the deck, because I love this Robin Hood feeling, hooded jacket and being on a stag. It's real good. And this asks, how do we deal with the logistics? How do we sort through the forest of the minutiae of this material world, navigate the red tape, navigate the shadows in order to do what we need to do for our bodies, for our homes, for our careers, for our lives? So, explorers are how people. And then the creators, which this one's the creator of tomes is the self-insert card for the writer of the deck, which I think is adorable. The creators ask the who questions, the interpersonal aspects of whatever issue it is. So here, the creator of candles asks, who do I need to bring this change about? Who do I need to enlist? Who do I need? Whose help do I need? Or to whom can I delegate to bring this change or this transformation about, to get this thing done? The Queen of Vials asks, or may ask, things like, who am I in this relationship? Who are they? Who are we together? And may ask questions like who's giving more? Are we being good to each other? About the interpersonal, again, the interpersonal aspects of heart situations. So not just where am I, but where am I in relation to other people? And how is that space between us working? Is it working well? Is it working badly? And then the creator of bells. I love this one. So often the Queen of Swords, which is the equivalent here, is shown either as a really sad woman or a really detached woman or a really cynical woman, or all three to some extent. Like in the Toth deck, she's kind of in an I don't give a fuck position in her throne on a cloud, like holding the severed head of Kronos or an enemy, just kind of laid back above it all. And I think there's something to that sense of melancholy or overwhelm, where at the point where our brains intersect with the interpersonal shit. Because I know there are very few better ways for me to get overwhelmed or discouraged than to try and really apply my logic brain, my realist brain, to people things and heart things in unproductive ways. There are productive ways to do that, but I'm good at doing it in unproductive ways. So that can leave me feeling a lot like this, like the thoughts are just coming louder and more overwhelming. But my sense with this card is that this person knows what to do with that, knows how to direct that, and how to ask the productive questions, which might be who inspires me, who might have ideas that could help me sort through this. Who can I talk this out with? Those sorts of things. The interpersonal aspects of sorting through our own brains and our ideas, the theoretical parts, which is hard. It's hard for me. Then the creator of tomes asking, this is the kind of asking, who can I enlist for help moving or packing? Who's good to make sure I get on the sign up list for the potluck? Who is responsible and dependable? Who do I want on this maintenance-based committee? Who is going to help me keep things running? Who is trustworthy with their resources? Who is going to be trustworthy with my resources? Yeah. Maybe more than any of the others, I still have a queen sense from this one. In the kind of sense of queen has the authority to delegate, to assign tasks, to distribute resources, and say, go to, make it so. So those are our creators, those are our water people. And then the mystics, who would be the kings. First of all, I love all the court cards here. Yes, Kofi, make it so. I love all the court cards here, but I especially love these mystics, y'all. I love that we really get, like, mature, elder-looking folks, not just, like, regal adults, like the Rider-Waite court cards. But super dignified, mature. I love it a lot. Okay. And can get clear on that. There we go. So the mystics ask the why questions. So the Mystic of Candles says, okay, we want to make this change. Why are we doing this? Why are we setting out to change this? What's our motivation? And that's none of these are necessarily judgmental, but just checking in. with ourselves, knowing that it's much easier to stay true to our purpose if we're very clear about what our motivation is. It's much easier to remain authentic, to remain grounded, if we're very clear in why are we doing this thing? Why do we think it's important? And then the Mystic of Vials is the, okay, here comes a feeling. Why am I feeling this? What's at the root of it? Again, this isn't a judging thing, but a looking for how can we observe our own weather patterns in a useful way? How can we look at the storm, understand the storm, and not be tossed about by it? Just kind of at its whim. So we have the storm in the bottle. Absolutely, this is a revelation I've come to recently. Have that mission statement or stated purpose and use it as a guiding principle and keep coming back to it over and over. Exactly, Crafty. Yeah. Because there are a ton, there are numberless good things that we can be doing in the world. There's a whole lot of cool shit that is every bit as worthy of time and attention as the shit I do, but it's not my shit. It's not my work. And if I'm not really, really clear on what my work is and why I'm doing it, then it's super easy for me to feel like, oh, well, this is good too, and it's just as worthy. So why am I not doing this? Why am I not helping out here? Why am I not doing XYZ? So yes, the why. I will say, yeah, thank you for that observation, Crafty. I will say that I've noticed this card coming up in positions or in coming up reversed more than the other mystics, or in positions where it's saying maybe let go of this a bit. And so I've had a chance to get a little bit of a better sense for the shadow side of this card in a way that I haven't necessarily for the rest of them. And to me, when the cards are saying let go of this, don't hold on to this, to me that's talking about how tempting it can be sometimes to demand reasons and logic for what we're feeling. Because there's the very healthy why questions where we are able to look at our feelings and look at where they're rooted and what that tells us about ourselves. But a lot of times there's a time and a place for that. And if we're not in the right time and place, it can all too easily become, well, why am I feeling this thing? Why am I not over this? Why am I still stuck in my feelings about this? Why am I not done with this? Why am I not healed from this? I feel like here in particular, it's really easy to get into unproductive and difficult why questions and why places, spirals of why. So, thing I've noticed. Then, Mystic of Bells. So, asking, well, why do I think this way? Why do I feel so strongly about this set of beliefs, this set of thoughts, or this way of thinking? What's that about for me? Why do I think this is the right way? And again, that's not judging. That's not saying, well, you're wrong to think that firmly about whatever it is. It's just checking in, being very aware to make sure that there's not internalized prejudices or narratives or things that we didn't realize were affecting our belief systems or our thoughts on the best processes and procedures. Because that happens, right? So it's good to ask the whys, good to take a look, a little more in depth, and check in with ourselves. So, then the Mystic of Tomes, which I also love, not just because they're in a lovely outdoor setting with tons of books. Although that helps, as does the Viney Ivy stuff. But they ask, maybe, why are we so concerned about our health? Why are we fixated on our body? How it looks, or this part about how it functions? Why do we have our logistics systems set up the way we do? Is that even helpful for us? Why do we define success and plenty the way we do? Is that helpful? So, taking that mystic why, examining our motivations, examining the thought behind it approach to all the things that tomes or coins or discs are about. Our brains, our hearts, etc. So, the mystics, the why people, the motivation people, and that breakdown of the what questions, the how questions, the who questions, the why questions, has really helped me get a much better grip on how to articulate what these cards are about. And it seems to help the people I read for too. I haven't gotten nearly as many, I always ask at the end of a reading, or I try to, do you have any clarifying questions? Do you have any points you didn't understand that you need me to explain more? And it wasn't unusual before I got this deck for court cards to really be a sticking point for people to go kind of, oh, well, I don't know what you meant by blah. Or could you say more about the Princess of Wands? And be like, okay, how do I explain this? And I find myself doing that a lot less. Or even when I do have to clarify, I find it a lot easier for people to be like, oh, okay, all right, I understand that, I get what that means. So that's one of the things that I'm just incredibly grateful to Noel Arthur Hempel for regarding the Numinous Tarot. It's made my life as a reader just worlds easier. So, Crafty and Cacophony, thank you both so much for sticking it out and for letting me ramble at you about court cards and show off my pretties. Did either of you have any questions or anything you wanted to talk about? Cool, yay, thank you. I thoroughly enjoyed sharing with y'all as well. I'm feeling a little beat, so unless there's just someone that we need to tiny raid, I think I'm just gonna close it out. I see a few people streaming, but I think I'm just gonna close it out for the night. Thank you both so much. I really appreciate you all here, and I will figure out and put up my stream schedule soon. Have a wonderful night.